What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of At Home with Mark. Today is episode 11 of season 3. And I don't know why, Adrian. I don't know why it's taking me 3 seasons to have you on, because I've been following your work for probably longer than the 3 years or 3 seasons. Probably longer than 3 years, actually, too. But Adrian Thorpe, thank you so much, dude. I know it's late, and I appreciate you making the time with me.
Mate, I appreciate you having us. Thank you.
Yeah, man. So yeah, I mean, I've obviously from the Outer Rim, let's be Star Warsy, but from the Outer Rim, I've been looking in and kind of watching your kind of career kind of pop over the past several years with just like effects pedals and whatnot. And we can get into all that stuff too. But I always am curious because I know your background, you have a military background, correct?
Yeah, that's right. I left 3 years ago, but I joined when I was 16. Elected to join when I was 16, and then left when I was 37. So I did a while.
That's a long career, man.
Yeah, I'm a pensioner.
Yeah, dude, you earned it, man. You earned it. I have my grandfather. I'm very interested in military history because my grandfather was on Omaha Beach, survived, went through Battle of the Bulge and like all
Oh
that
my
crazy stuff
God.
and came home, and thank God, and my mom had a father, her life. But I'm very interested, and I have a great uncle who fought against Rommel in Africa, and so I have a lot of military history in my family. I've never been in the military, but I'm very interested in like military history, especially World War II history.
Well, let me say this: that guy's a legend.
Right.
Um, that generation and the things they went through. I mean, we go on tour and it's 7 months, it's a year, and it's hard, and and war is hard. I think in general, some see harder conflicts than others, but when you look back in the day, you're going to war, right? Cool. When are we coming back? No idea.
Yeah,
Omaha Beach. Oh my God.
I
Have you
know.
ever been over to France to visit?
I haven't, but we're planning on it.
Do it. Do
I
it.
told my wife. Yeah, I told my wife we got to do it. I know because he passed away pretty young. He was like in his 60s because he had his arteries were clogged, and this in like in his legs. So this was before modern science and medical
Yeah.
science was able to kind of fix that for him. Um, but he passed away just, I think, from his, clogged arteries. But I heard he was a tough son of a gun. He passed away when I was 3. So I didn't get a chance to really know him. But I know that if he was still alive when I was 18, I know I'd have been like, hey, Pop, let's go to France. Let's get on a plane. Let's go over there. And I know he would have appreciated it because I know my mom, she used to say that he and my great uncle, as soon as I had a couple sips of the juice, they would start talking about the war, and all the women would be like, stop talking about the war. But it is interesting to me. So it's crazy.
I would like to have shared a beer with him. But
Yeah.
I tell you that, mate.
Yeah. That's crazy, man. Um, but anyway, war aside, because we're talking about
Yeah,
guitar,
yeah,
I
yeah,
want to
yeah.
I want to know. I have this question that I always ask all my guests because I have a super, super pinpoint moment in my life when music kind of waltzed in, stomped on my heart, and said, hey, buddy, take notice. Um, do you have a very specific moment in your life where music itself, whether it be listening to a record that came on the radio or whatever it may be, do you have a very specific moment that made you interested in music in general?
Yeah, I guess I would say I had a stuttering start and then really got into it. So for me, the music I listen to in general, I like music that moves me emotionally. Now that can be happy, sad, whatever, but it tends to have to move me. Otherwise, I don't have the attention span to appreciate it. And so for me, the first time I remember an album having an impact on me was Michael Jackson, Bad. It was the first album that I ever got. It was on cassette. I got it for Christmas with a Walkman style thing, and I remember that album just being like, whoa, this is amazing. And it was because it was the beats, it was the synthy stuff, it was the guitar, it was everything about it. It was just quite a emotional, but I don't mean like sad, I mean like, whoa, this is great experience for me. So that was the stuttering start. And then as I became older, I got into music that was, I think you probably refer to it as EDM, but we had house music over here before you guys did, really. It started in 1980s, and I got into that. So I was really into the heavier side of what you would call EDM music, and alongside that, it was the heavier side of sort of rock. So I remember those moments. I remember the music really sort of being, I was being quite passionate about it. I would go out to clubs and listen to it constantly. I always had a Walkman on my a cassette Walkman in my school uniform, a CD player, and it was like, because I used to catch the bus to go to school, so everything on, like, ears in, sharing with someone else. It was quite formative, really.
Yeah. Those are very impressionable years too. Like, are you talking about like middle school, high school era? Because I think we're close to the same. I'm 42. I think we're pretty close.
So I'm 40, yeah. So
yeah.
I guess the mainstream music back then for me would have been things. I mean, obviously there's an ocean between us, but I would say Backstreet Boys. No, before that, like Marky Mark and stuff like that. It's that era. Right, so over here we had like Take That, Westlife, before Westlife actually, but anyway, and then the sort of indie scene kicked off. So you've got Oasis, you've got Blur, and Part Life was a big album for the majority of people. And Nirvana had come and gone, and again around that sort of time, Guns N' Roses and Alice in Chains, they were sort of the more mainstream rock, and then new metal hit. And that's what took me. I was like, yes, what is this? So I remember it very good. I remember being on the fringe of what my other friends were listening to. But I also remember like Part Life being such a badass album.
Yeah, dude, that makes sense to me, because if you were like into EDM and then like that new metal thing comes along, some of that stuff was like four on the floor, like, punchy, and that kind of makes sense to me that would kind of evolve into you digging that stuff. I mean, I grew up on Nirvana and Pearl Jam and Soundgarden and Alice in Chains and all that stuff. So like here in my younger years, in the whatever it would be, like the early 90s, that's what was on my stereo, but it's funny because like the metal stuff that I got into as a kid was like Pantera and Metallica and that kind of. I don't play anything like that now. Like, I'm like a soul, blues, funk guitar player, which is hilarious. I went from one side to the next, but that time of music was really eclectic. Like when we were in that time period, there was a lot of stuff that was kind of merging. You know what I mean?
Well, I remember, one hand listening to drum and bass and hard techno, and then on the other hand listening to, wow, blimey, like Linkin Park and Limp Bizkit and Slipknot were just out, and that they Korn, and those were the bands that are sort of like, oh, this is very similar, and I could see the link. And interestingly, obviously, Korn do an album later on with Skrillex, way down the line, and that sort of that combination, and I know what it is. It's the beats, it's the rhythm, it's everything to do with that just hits me in the right place. Whereas some music I just can't get on board with, because even though I know it's really good technically, I'm just sort of like, oh. For instance, Stevie Ray Vaughan. I like listening to Stevie Ray Vaughan because there's a rhythm to it, and it's just sort of, it gets me going. I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But then some blues just leaves me cold. I can't do it.
Yeah.
You know. So, and I haven't got any rhyme or reason to that. I just know that I need something marching, rhythm, something to take me along with the song.
Yeah. It makes sense though, because like Stevie was like edgy and it was groovy. It was more groove oriented stuff. Like I feel the same way. There's some blues guitarists that I appreciate, till the end of time. But like Freddie King, for instance, have you listened to that album, The Burglar?
Forgive me, I haven't. No.
Holy crap. Talk about another blues record that is a grooving, like a hard grooving blues record. It's amazing. And if you get a chance to listen to that album, because there's a horn section all over that record. There's horns. It's super funky and super groovy. Like that record will probably be, if I put it, I'd probably put it in my top 5 blues records of all time. I mean,
Amazing.
it's really good, man. It's really good. Here we have a little callback to the Marky Mark. Because my name's Mark. I used to get that a lot when I was a kid, like during that time, like, hey, Marky Mark, on the lacrosse field.
Did you have a 6-pack? Is that what it was?
I wish, man. I wish. I'm working on it now, but as a 40-year-old, muscles don't appear like they used to.
It's a keg, right?
It's not a keg. It's like a fading 6-pack. But I wanted to ask you. So as far as you're in the military, okay? So you're a young kid. You're into music. You get into the military. Like, when did you start playing guitar? Like, how old were you?
So I just commissioned. Right. So actually, again, I had a stuttering start. I tried to learn guitar when I was at secondary school, high school, and unbeknownst to me, my parents bought me a left-handed guitar, and I was trying to play it right-handed. Right. So I was like, I can't get this to sound right. This doesn't make any sense. Yeah. So I just gave up. And then I came back to it after I commissioned. So when we're looking in 2002-ish, around that period. And I was like, oh, this makes much more sense now. Hang on. Why are the fat strings at the top? This. And I was like, okay, that's why I couldn't get it before. So around that time. It's ridiculous.
Okay. So you didn't try to do the Eric Gales or Doyle Bramhall thing and just play upside down?
No. I mean, there's one thing about me, like my patience threshold for anything is pretty slim. You have to be very brutally honest with what your personality type is, but I have very little patience.
Yeah. As we all are, especially in these times, man. Let's be real. The past year and some months. Oh my God, dude. Look, you got some love in here, man. Brian said loves your stuff. Heard about you from that.
Oh, thanks, Brian.
And I think here's another one. I wanted to talk to you about the gunshot and especially the camouflage, because I think I probably heard about you from Dan as well. Most likely. Pete was on here last season and he was like, I got to get you a Dane because you got to do a review of that too. I was like, I'd love to. I've heard nothing but good things about it. But the first time I heard a pedal of yours, I think it was the gunshot. And I was like, whoa, there's like a punchiness to that sound in that pedal that when I heard it, because I like stuff, I'm a huge fuzz fan. And I like stuff that teeters on overdrive and fuzz that almost makes your stuff sound like it's broken. Like those are my favorite types of sounds. Like I can get behind the whole. I use a lot of stuff that's very TS or that creamy kind of overdrive thing as well. I do that too. But like I like to get really gnarly and have stuff that sounds like my amp's about to implode. And I feel like your fuzzes and stuff that I've heard make that happen. And I'm jumping way ahead, but like, as far as playing guitar, like what's the first effect pedal you heard and you're like, I gotta buy that?
So the first effect pedal I had built-in effects in a Roland Cube, okay, and that was rubbish from what I wanted. it was great as a unit, but I wanted to do this Eric Clapton thing before, you know, he went on an absolute rant. So way back when. We'll go with Tony. It was also Tony Iommi and Brian May. I was after that thing. So the first pedal I guess, decided I wanted to build was a Rangemaster. The first pedal I ever bought was an old school Big Muff in the wooden box. You know, not old, but sort of from the 90s, and had like a Gorilla amplifier. And I had this thing, and they sounded terrible together, like utterly horrendous. I mean, transistor amp with a Big Muff, just, it was mush. I was like, oh, well, I better take those back because they suck. Tried a Zoom 505 or whatever it was, and again, I was like, this. And essentially, the amp was the problem here. It just didn't have any headroom. So I got this Zoom 505, and I guess that was all right. But then I fell down this massive rabbit hole of like, oh, Marshall amps. Oh, they're made in the UK. Amazing. Oh, I could get this sort of blues breaker sound, or, you know, this combo seems important. So the Rangemaster. I kept reading up about it. I was like, I'm going to build one because I couldn't afford one. Yeah, and I went down that road and built one, and it didn't work. And so where my patience is somewhat limited at times, my wanting to succeed drives me forward. So I found myself in a position where I learned more from that failure than I would have sort of gained from it succeeding. And then that was me. I'm done at that point. I'm fully invested in building, testing, cloning hundreds of circuits. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So Rangemaster, probably.
Okay. After you did the Rangemaster, so you eventually got it to work, I'm gathering.
Yeah.
And then were you like super pumped? And at that point, were you like, I can make more of these? Or were you like, now I want to try a different circuit, like immediately?
Well, the thing is, I was very young very early into my career. So I was fully invested in the army as an officer at that time. And so I wasn't thinking, I'm going to build hundreds of these, be world famous, take on everyone. You know, that wasn't my thing. I wanted to just build different circuits because I thought, well, if I can do the Rangemaster, I can do the Fuzz Face, which Jimi Hendrix is. I can build an Octavia. I can build and it went on and on and on. And so rather than lots of one, I built hundreds of everything. I mean, pretty much you name a circuit up until probably 2011, between sort of 2000 and 2011, I built pretty much everything.
Man,
and then life took a turn, and I stopped doing it.
Yeah, man, that's nuts. So is it true is that why people start building fuzzes earlier on, because they're much simpler circuits, and it's just kind of easier to kind of start experimenting with that?
Yes and no. I think there's a magic to the circuit that little change. So with the simpler circuits, little changes can have a monumental effect to the sound. You know, you've got so few components that if you could change the type of components, or you change the type of transistors, or change the bias, you know, you can do a lot with very little. It's kind of like how a good chef could work wonders just making plain pasta. You know, it's the tips and tricks that they have that you don't. So when you're learning, it's easier to find both fault and also positively reinforce what you're learning on a simple circuit. So I think that's why people do it. And also everyone has aspirations of, you know, selling a fuzz face for £6 million.
What are your thoughts on that? I mean, so in my mind right now, like just getting the chance to talk to you is great. It's just like, we are in I feel like we're in the platinum age of guitar gear, in terms of like having options and people, you know, putting out different styles of different fuzz circuits, or different overdrive circuits, or different modulation circuits, or whatever it may be. Does it feel to you like it's too many companies, or does it feel like there's room for everybody to be making stuff right now? Because we're all kind of, it doesn't feel like in the pedal world, it doesn't feel like it's a competition. Like it seems like all of you guys are doing your own thing, especially you have a very specific fingerprint, even from like your casing, it's immediate, it's a Thorpy pedal as soon as you see it, kind of thing.
Yeah, okay. So I'll unpack that. There's a few things. I think there's room for everyone. I mean, don't get me wrong. I was gonna launch a company in 2008 around that time, and things, like I say, previous relationship broke down and all the rest of it, and it didn't happen. So I would have probably, if I'd done that, it probably would have launched around the same sort of time as JHS had.
Okay.
But because we're in the same. Don't get me wrong, he's miles ahead of me in sheer volume and all the rest of it. But we came up around the same time, so I will have seen him on forums and like guitar electronics stuff over that time. I vaguely remember it. Building the same sort of circuits as well, interestingly. Now he's gone off to do his thing, and he's championing, I think, the whole industry. I mean, kudos to that guy, because he has championed the whole industry, and I think it's to the good and benefit of the whole industry, which is great. So I think this. I've always said we're not really in competition with each other. We're in competition with PlayStation and Xbox. And all of that, because you're not in competition for to sell. That's the end goal, but you're in competition for people's time. We only have a finite amount of it. We've all got lots of things going on, and for someone to take the time to research watch a video, buy the product, this is a big funnel that they're following down. They then buy it. At that point, you won, because of, great, they bought your product and they're going to enjoy the product, hopefully. But the very start of it, they could have just sat down and played, Call of Duty, but they're choosing to practice, and they or procrastinate and buy a pedal, which is what we all do. But the competition is with other stuff. It's not with each other necessarily, because we all have different offerings.
Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, it's fun. I love the fact that there's a million like people out there trying to do some cool stuff and just options, because it's led me to find things that I never normally would have played through before, like especially with like the option to find things easier online, and have demos and have access. Because when we were kids, man, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have a way to
no, just out.
Yeah.
From the mainstream, just out.
Yeah, and it's like, how are you supposed to know? Because I can't even remember. I mean, the pedals that I knew existed were in my local shop, and it was Boss and it was Ibanez. It was those tank pedals from Ibanez back in the day, So I didn't have, my first pedal was a Super Chorus, and I bought that because of Kurt Cobain, And people ask me that all the time. It's like, well, what's a good first pedal to have? And like, I'm like, it's hard to answer that, because for me, I kind of wish I would have either bought an overdrive pedal or a wah pedal first. I just didn't know what these things were at the time. Now you got all this information out there to kind of inform you, like, well, you want an overdrive pedal? There's 30 million. Here's what you can look at. If you're looking for this, do this. But you know what I mean? It's just crazy. I love it. I love that there's a lot out there to pick from.
I think, that's an interesting question. What pedal would I recommend for someone? I'd probably recommend that they get like a good, like you say, good foundation overdrive. Just something that will stack with something else. So that it's not, because a lot of time in a lot of hobbies, you end up with, you buy into it at a certain price point, and then you're in the hobby for a bit longer. You're like, oh well, I'm a bit better now, so I can maybe buy this, or I want to treat myself. We've all got excuses and reasons why we do these things, but we justify it to ourselves. Oh, I want to do this, that, and the other. So if you there's an argument say buy cheap, buy twice. I think you should just buy what you can afford, but buy sensibly, so that when you want to expand, the product that you have is part of that. So if you bought something that can stack well, so go for an SD1, for instance, maybe the SD1 Wazza where the buffer's sorted, that will stack with most things, and it'd be great.
Yeah.
That's probably where I'd recommend it.
Yeah, it's funny that you say the SD1, because that's generally speaking most people's first pedal.
That was DS1.
Yeah. I had I can't remember. I've probably had 3 people on here, and I've asked them that question: what was your first pedal? And it was the SD1. And I'm like, oh well, I guess that makes sense, man. Like, it's not like my buddy's joking in here, but he's saying Boss Metal Zone. We shall not buy that.
Well, you say that. I've got 2 now. I've got an anniversary one.
The Wazza one.
I've got a Wazza one, and I've had a standard one. Actually, the first boutique pedal I bought into in a pair. I bought a DS1 by Keeley and a Metal Zone by Keeley. I mean, it was so long ago that he offered a toggle switch that locked. So you on the Metal Zone, so you lifted it up, moved it, and it locked down. So you didn't knock it. I've never seen those since. So they were my first boutique pedals, and that was before he had his shop that set on fire. So it was a long time ago.
Man, isn't it crazy? Like, you think about companies and think about like the King of Tone when that came out. Like, Analog Mike he's one of the pioneers too in the industry of like, how was he selling stuff like back then? It's like, it was so, the market was
from
so
the classifieds.
It's crazy. I know. Like the penny
people
saver,
write into him.
Oh, it's crazy. I can't believe like where he is now compared to where it started. He's probably like, this is nuts. Like, I can't believe that this has happened this way.
I mean, obviously, Dan Coggins from Love Tone, he was around the same sort of era, probably a little bit before Mike. But he was like the first British boutique, maybe Roger Mayer. But around that time, they would have like producers ring them up and say, oh, I'd like to buy so-and-so. I saw your advert in what you call it, and we'll send you a check. And the check would come through, and then weeks later they'd ship the product. And like how much further have we moved on now? It's like, and I think this probably doesn't help. People are like, bought it. What next?
I know it's dangerous. You could be on Reverb and be like, shit. Like, I just bought hey babe, sorry, I just bought another $300 pedal. Oh, speaking of $300 pedals, so what is your take? All right, so in 2002, speaking of Josh and his Klon like controversies, I bought a Klon from Bill in about 2002, and I bought it. It was $300. It was the silver Klon.
Yeah,
not knowing really what it was. I went to.
Did you ring him? Because that's how it used to be done. You have to ring him and tell him what you wanted it for.
I did, and he threw some serious shade at my amp. He was like, "What amp are you playing right now?" And I was like, "I have a PV Classic 50, which wasn't a bad amp. That's not a bad amp. I had
it's a good amp.
I had a PV Classic 50 Tweed, and I had the 410 cab and the 115 cab. And he's like, you gotta get a better amp if you really want this pedal to do what it's supposed to do. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, and at that time, Adrian, spending $300 on a guitar pedal, that was a lot of money for me. I mean, I was 21.
That's a lot of money for everyone.
Let's
be honest.
But like, I was just like, I'm spending $300. That's like half of what my guitar cost, basically, for a pedal. Now, I sold it in about 2015 for $1,500. And I don't regret that at all, because there's so many great clones now. I mean, I A/B'd it before I sold it with the Wampler Tumnus, and I was like, it sounds exactly the same. It sounds exactly the same. So why am I like holding on and coveting this thing when I could sell this and get this guitar that I really want, and bring enjoyment to my life. So that's what I did. But what's your whole thought on the whole Klon thing and people getting up in arms about it?
Oh, look, maybe I've got a controversial opinion on this. I don't know. If you can afford it, buy it. It just doesn't matter. If you can't afford it, don't be sad about it. Just go and buy one of the many, many good and enhanced clones. Buy an enhanced clone. I'm not a fan of total clones. I just lazy. Don't do it. This is my opinion, obviously. Other people prefer a total clone. Buy an enhanced one. Get the Tumnus. Get something like that. And then be happy because you've got a great sounding overdrive. But here's the deal. They're going for silly money at the moment. And it's almost a bit of a fetish product.
Yep.
It's not going to make you sound any better. If you were to spend $3,000, $4,000, what are they, $5,000 now? If you were to spend that on guitar lessons, no matter what people think, you'd be a better guitar player and you wouldn't need that overdrive. But again, I don't really care if it makes you feel better. I mean, I've got gear that I personally feel like I shouldn't own because I don't feel like I'm good enough to own it. But again, I bought it because I don't care. I wanted it. And that's it. It's the end of. So how do I feel about the Klon? Buy it. Don't buy it. Be happy. It's fine, honestly.
Yeah. What's is it an amp like that you bought that you're like feel like you don't deserve? Like of course you deserve it, but like
I've got many demons, but
what was your first amp that you got that you're like, ooh, this is the holy grail amp?
Yeah, it was a Marshall DSL 50 watt DSL. I think it was a 401. It's the one that set on fire. It didn't set on fire, but it was the amp that subsequently I found out used to set on fire.
Oh, okay.
It was a great amp. For the time, it was like this sea change for me. It was like I've gone from a Roland Cube, which was fine, to a first valve amp, and this thing just absolutely rocks. For me, it was everything. It was like, this is rock, this is metal, this is it. I've arrived. That was the first one.
Yeah. You gotta treat yourself, man. It's like the Parks and Rec. Treat yourself like every now and again, because I feel like I got into a rabbit hole at some point with amplifiers, not knowing, because it's a journey, man, and I'm sure like for you too, and like what your ears hear, and even when you're building, it's a journey to kind of find what you like. And I think at the age I am now, I don't think I really understood what tone was in terms of really harnessing it and like understanding what works for me and my ears and my hands until I was in my mid 30s, maybe.
Yeah, I can understand that. It's probably down to a bit of maturity than anything else. Also, a lot of the time when you're young and you do these things, you often buy into the hype because you think you ought to own something, right?
Right.
And after a while, you realize that actually that isn't really for me. And so you end up buying the thing you want, and you take a bit more time over it, and you listen, and you enjoy it. I have lots of amps at the moment. I have amps for two reasons. One is for three reasons. One is for testing, and I have a Fender Hot Rod Deluxe Mark IV for testing.
Perfect.
Every single pedal that we make goes through the Fender Hot Rod Deluxe Mark IV. Why? Because it's an absolute perfect amp for that. Perfect amp for most things, actually. And lots of people have them. So the right amp for us to test. I have amps for development, and I have everything, lots of different flavors. So I've got Vox, Marshall, Soldano, Orange, Two Rock, Cornford, Fender, Mesa Boogie. I've got lots, right? And they are things for development. So what does it sound like here? What does it sound like here? What does it sound like in that loop? And I enjoy those. And then I have the amp that I sit down and I play with. So for in the office, High Watt for clean, Cornford for rock, Soldano for heavier stuff, but not too heavy, Orange for heavy metal, like doomy stuff. And my all-round amp is a Mesa Boogie Mark 3, which I got relatively recently.
Wow.
You know, so I use it for different reasons.
Yeah, that Mark III, I think the Mark III is like the old school John Scofield amp. I think John Scofield for a long time was using that Mesa Boogie Mark III amp. I remember seeing that thing on his stage for years. It's a great amp.
Now, I don't know whether I'm late to the party or that they are good value. So the Mark IIc Plus is not good value. It's just quite expensive, but they're pretty much the same amp with a few changes. The Mark III that I have, astonishing. The cleans are great. The crunches are great. The high gain is fantastic. The speakers and EVM is a massive thing. This combo is like this big and it weighs. It's like uranium. This thing is dense. So the sound. A sleeper amp, I think, and I think more people will be buying those, and they'll be coveted. I got mine.
Oh yeah,
a good bargain on mine.
What 2-rocker do you have?
I want to get the name right. Hang on. Classic Reverb Signature. 50 watt.
Oh yeah, that's the flagship. Yeah, that thing's great, dude. I love 2-rock stuff. It's just like I always refer to it as HD guitar. Like it just you know.
I would say that some things I buy because I like the people that make them. So we're quite friendly with Eli and the owner of 2-rock and the team that are surrounding, mainly because of NAMM and some of the players that use them. And that's an amp where I would say, actually, I don't feel like I'm good enough to own it because everyone I've seen play through it has just been so astonishingly talented that I'm like, yeah, well, I'll keep doing what I'm doing, but
dude, you deserve it, man. Come on now. So let's talk a little bit about the pedal lines. How many do you have? Like 15 now? Is it like 15?
Something like that, yeah. And we've had some that have been limited edition and gone, and one that we retired early. But yeah.
Okay. What's your favorite one to build? Like from the inception of it, that you were like, I really like what we got going on here.
Blimey. So physically, for me to be building, probably the Fallout Cloud. It met the goal that I wanted to achieve so succinctly that I absolutely bowled over. And I would suggest one of those pedals where as soon as we'd done it, and it's like a little bit of tweaking, it was like, yeah, that's nailed on. Do not touch anything. And so I had a real eureka moment with that pedal.
Is it like a celebration when that happens in the shop? Or are you just like, oh my God, we did it?
Yeah, so that one, high fives with my wife, Georgia. So I was like, yes. We just remember, because I'm always sat down cross-legged doing things. So the thing's always in bits and, not as you would buy them, obviously, but when they're in the prototyping stage, they're sort of in bits. And that one is just like a high five. I had that moment also happened on my other company, Redbeard Effects, with the Angry Rhubarb. That was a high five moment with me and Mikey, because I was like, look, I've done this thing, I really like it. Mikey's a professional guitarist and tours with his band. I was like, I know you're fussy, as in he's got real standards and for what he wants, the sound in his head. So give it a go. And he was like, yeah, nailed on straight away. I was like, brilliant. High five. And we actually caught that a bit on camera. They got caught on camera. So
that's great.
Which is really nice.
Yeah, man. That's gotta feel good. Like when because you're creating stuff that brings joy, to like anytime I plug something new in and it's, from a company that I like, I just got that #1 signature from Nordvang, and
Right. Yeah.
I plugged it in, and I was like, oh my God, this thing does, like you're talking about an enhanced clone. Like that's a really
Yeah.
good example of that. And I always make a point to like send a message to whatever company and just be like, dude, this thing is amazing. Thank you so much. Because it does, it like brings joy, like to make music with something that is kind of giving you back what you want to hear. And that's how I feel about the 2-Rock. Like when I bought my studio signature, the first time I played it, I was like, this is what I've been searching for my whole freaking career as a guitarist. Like it's popping back
Yeah.
what I need, you know?
I get that. I mean, do you know what's really interesting? It's cool that you actually contact the manufacturer. I mean, it's difficult sometimes because you're on so many different platforms, but communication can be a little bit awkward because you don't want to let anyone down, but sometimes you're just absolutely bombarded. It's a little bit tricky.
For sure.
However, we get messages from people saying, "Look, I bought this. It's incredible. Thank you so much." And sometimes you're just having a crap day, and that message drops into your email or your in your socials, and you're like, oh, amazing. It actually does lift. It does lift you. I know it sounds really lame, but
No, not at
what
all,
I'm trying
dude.
to say is I appreciate it because it adds a little bit of context and clarity to what we're trying to do. People don't have to buy our stuff; they choose to, and we're so grateful for it because it supports lots of people, through their purchases. And we try and make the best product we can because, well, we think people deserve it, and we know that they don't have to buy our products. So we are grateful when they do. And those little messages, like, this is why we do it. That's exactly why we do it. Brilliant.
Yeah. Dude, that's not lame. I think that's part of life. I mean, I feel like we have these roller coasters that we get on every day, and from day to day it can be different. And especially during COVID, dude, this has been an absolute nightmare. So it's like anytime you have the chance to put some positivity out into the world, that's why I do it, man. Because like life is way too freaking short to not be positive and be, lift other people up when they deserve to be lifted up, or like, whatever, man. It just, gear is fun. It brings joy. I did a whole video on my channel about why do we keep buying guitar pedals. And it was my point was because it's freaking fun. Let go of it. It's just fun. Like if you enjoy it and it brings you some satisfaction and it helps you learn and helps you take your musicality to the next level, that's why we do it, man. Like if anybody ever said, if anyone says you don't need all that gear, like be like, well, you don't, but I like it. It's like whatever.
Like you say, life's too short sometimes. I'm going to share an experience with you that's happened recently. I was going to cancel this thing, mainly because of where we've been for the last 10 days personally. Now, I posted on my socials, my son built his first ever pedal. I've got 2 sons, Alfred, who's 4 months nearly, Eleanor, who's my daughter, and she's 4 years just, and I've got an older son, Fraser, who's 13. And he doesn't live with me, but we see each other regularly, and he came to stay with me this summer, and he wanted to work. So we taught him he already knows how to solder, but we taught him how to do all the different things that go into a pedal. And whilst I was away for a day, he was in work, and the lads at work and the girl at work, they trained him up to build the whole pedal, start to finish. And he built a fallout cloud. And I have to say, look, there's moments in your life when you're proud of what you've achieved, but it doesn't it pales in comparison to what you see from your kids. So he's 13, he's built his first pedal. It happens to be a fallout cloud. It happens to work perfectly. His soldering is on point. I'm like, wow, that's amazing. So it sat on my desk for a little while anyway. Fast forward, I was deciding what to do with this pedal. I chose to keep it, put it in a box, and that decision came about because we went to the zoo. He got very ill. This is like 10 days ago. he caught E. coli and had some secondary, and he's
Oh
been in
man.
hospital. So he came out of hospital yesterday, thankfully. But the point I'm trying to make is, this is what I'm saying about life being so fragile. You know, he was very seriously ill, and this stuff. I'm doing it for myself, obviously, but it put it into context to me that I've got a cool son who can do this cool stuff. I'm going to save this, because even though I thought, oh, that should just go out there, I realised that life's too short, and so I've got a product now in a box that's just sat there that I can be proud of. I'm going to give it to him, and if he wants one to use, he can have a separate one because he's not allowed to use this one. But but you know, he's a cool kid, and he's doing a lot better. He's at home recovering now after a lot of serious medical intervention. But
dude, thank God for modern medicine, man. You know, like,
yeah, it's crazy, absolutely crazy. You know, like, you know, went to the zoo and he caught E. coli. What the hell?
But he's doing okay right now.
He had dialysis and a blood transfusion and another load of dialysis and treatment and stuff, and essentially he's very fit, really fit, and he was able to fight it off. But you know, this is why we do this stuff. Life's too short. You know, like you say, treat yourself occasionally. You know, if it doesn't put anyone at jeopardy and it doesn't upset anyone, and you deserve it, treat yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you got to put his pedal. You got to put that in like a glass box, like the proof Tony Stark has a heart type of a thing.
I have. Oh, that's exactly what I've done. That's exactly what I've done.
Oh, that's killing.
I bought one. It arrived today. I built it. It's in that box. I sent him a picture of it.
Oh man.
Yeah.
That's amazing, dude. I'm a huge Marvel nerd, and that's the first thing I thought of. I was like, oh man, you gotta get that in a little glass box. That's so great. Oh
no, dude. It's exactly that. I've just got to work out how to fix it down in the box. I haven't decided. I've got a 3D printer, so I think I'm gonna just make a jig for it to go in the jacks, and that'll hold it down in the box.
Oh, man, that is awesome. I mean, I can't even imagine how proud you were too. Like when you like, oh my God, this thing works. It sounds great. He did this whole thing himself. Like I can't even, my kid's 10. And, you know, even when she sits at the piano and like figures out how to play the Harry Potter theme or something like that, I'm like, oh. So I can't even imagine how that felt, you know?
No, it's exactly, it's those things, and it's cumulative, isn't it? And you know, he's 13 now, and it just sort of like blows me away. And I'm like, and what makes me laugh is I joined the army when I was 16. So 3 years from now, from his age, he's away. That's the equivalent to what I did, which is nuts. I can't even fathom it. But yeah. So yeah, 15 pedals in the range. Yeah, man. And Fallout Cloud is probably the one I would choose out of all of them. Yeah,
man, that's crazy. Well, I mean, there's so much to choose from too. What I like about it is like you've got a compressor, you got a flanger, you got a phaser, you got fuzz, you got overdrive. Like you've got it all, man.
Nearly. We've got a few we're working on. We've got a lot to do. Everyone wants a delay. Oh, I want to do the best delay, and it's like an albatross. I'll around my neck. I'll get it. It's fine.
Are you gonna do something that's like simple, like a simple delay circuit? Or you can do something with a bunch of bells and whistles. Like, what do you prefer?
Have you seen what we've been putting out lately? Where do you think it's gonna go? Probably. Yeah. It's going to be bells and whistles. I think it has to be. But I mean, there's a real problem at the moment with getting parts. I mean, it's impossible. Absolutely impossible.
I've bought and sold so many delay pedals in my lifetime so far. Like I just haven't found the right one for me until Zach put out that Oracle from Mythos pedals. I think I just needed something simple, man. I just needed a slap back and I'm good, you know, and it's perfect for me. But dude, delays, there's a huge group of delay lovers in the guitar world that are like rabidly like you know, interested in different types of delays and, you know, kind of mixing and matching stuff with their crazy Strymon timeline and whatnot. I can't do that stuff. It's too many. It's like option paralysis. I'm like, oh.
So sometimes I'm the same really. I just don't want to. I just want to plug in. So I would say to you, the Boss DM2, just get an old battered one, or the Ibanez AD9. Most people would be over the moon with them. They're incredible. And if you can't get those, get the Way Huge Aquapus, because that's readily available and a great sound. It's really good.
I've heard, and it doesn't hurt that Mayer uses those.
Right. Well, there you go.
Yeah, and then it's funny because I bet you the price of those probably skyrocketed once that word got out. It's so funny, man, like how that stuff works. Like that.
I don't get it. I mean, I understand people like to sound it. I mean, the Ibanez TS10. Yeah. I had one. I've got up until recently. It was great. It sounded like a tube screamer. That's where it began and ended. It sounds like a tube screamer. It's great.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
John Mayer connection, and but I'm into watches, and he has had a massive impact on the watch world.
I bet
he's one of those people that, firstly, he made a custom G-Shock, right? The custom G-Shock sold out within minutes, and they made thousands of them. And they're gone, and they're being flipped on eBay and all that.
How much is that watch? Like on the street?
I think it was like $100. That it was around that price. It wasn't very expensive. Like, yeah. Forgive me. For a G-Shock, it was $100, and they range from like $100 to $3,000 for a G-Shock. Right. You can get all sorts, but it was at the cheaper end, and yeah, I think they were being flipped for like $500, ridiculous prices.
Oh my gosh!
But he's a kingmaker. That's how it goes.
I love that saying. That's great. I've never heard that before, dude. It's like this thing. I have I got on the ground floor with this before anybody knew what this thing was. I got that 29 pedals Una.
Yeah.
I got this thing probably before it was readily available, because I had a connection of a friend who grew up in Philly and knew him. So I contacted him about it. I got one. And now that it's been on Mayer's Dead & Company pedal board, everybody's like freaking the hell out. So, and this thing's crazy. I mean, it's definitely, it changes the quality of the sound of the amp in a really good way. Like I never thought
it's a good line driver.
Yeah, I never really thought that my T-Rock could sound better than it already did, kind of thing. But yeah, it's weird. Sometimes like things like this, it's just like with the Klon and just like with the TS10 and all that, and it's just kind of ramps up and gets to the point where it's like, okay, it's way too high now. It's gonna take a dive, and then you just have to wait until that moment happens, which sucks. It sucks, but it's cool for you though, because as soon as somebody sees, like Pete's pedal, see that on a board. I mean, those are probably flying off the shelves, right?
For you guys? we sell lots of those, and we did the right thing. We just didn't settle on the design until Pete was 100% happy. I mean, initially he was sort of like, oh, maybe in previous designs, and he didn't want to upset me. And then he didn't upset me, obviously. He was just like, I'm not sure. I was like, right, well, if you're not sure, let's go back to the beginning and go again, because I'm not doing this. And he was great to work with, because just so talented, but also able to articulate what he wants.
Yeah.
And he's just a cool dude, He's a friend. I'm really proud to count him as a friend, actually. From what he's essentially, I've made him a piece of gear for him to use, and for everyone else to enjoy as well. It's just nice that that's happened,
That's awesome, man. He's a wonderful human being. It's like, how can you discount what that guy has done for the community in general. Because generally speaking, the guitar community is pretty great.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's very supportive, and I love the fact that like different manufacturers are kind of buddies and like working on working on pedals together and doing collaborations and things like that. I think it's fun. But he's such a wonderful human being. I mean, what better person to be waving your flag, you know? So
Exactly. And you know, I mean, I think he takes heat sometimes for because he's an online presence and because people want to moan, but you know, like, no one's talking smack about you when you're on the way down, are they? They're always talking smack about you when you're on the way up. It's just the way it goes.
dude,
It means you're doing something right.
100%. And honestly, man, it's like I've learned, and in my older age now, I've learned that anytime somebody's hating, it's because that's them. That's in their heart.
Yeah.
That's not has nothing to do with you. You know what I mean? Joey Landreth told me, I was like, I had my first troll on YouTube, and he's like, "You've made it." It's like you're doing something right, buddy. Keep doing what you're doing. And I was like, all
what were they
right.
moaning about?
Oh God,
Why were they
man. You
moaning
know,
about you?
oh dude, it's like I just did a review of the Bartell amp, the Roseland.
Yeah.
And somebody wrote something like, God, I wish Mark Bartell would get some people who know what they're doing to do these, like demo these amps. And there was like a billion other people like, wow, what a great demo, blah, blah, blah. And one of my subscribers just went after the dude and was like, what else do you want? He went through every single setting. And I was like, yeah, like, dude, like, what's the hate for? Like, again, if you don't have any positivity to throw out in the world, just keep it to yourself, man. Like, it's like,
Yeah, I agree.
yeah, I live by the Thumper quote from Bambi of like, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. So, but that's just me, man.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Like gear demos is an interesting thing. You know, obviously we put out gear, so we get lots of different versions of people playing, and we try and cover most bases because guess what? Guitarists are all different. They all have different gear. They all have we can't specifically meter the millionth iteration of what someone's rig is. That's just not going to happen. But we can try and cover the bases. But still, people can be unhappy about it. But you know, the reality is, you know, leave the guys alone on YouTube. Just let them crack on. You know,
Yeah,
and if you think you could do better, guess what? The world's your oyster. Give it a go. Go on. It's fine.
And you know what, man? Like I'm doing it and just having fun. That's why I'm doing it. I just like gear. I like people like you and hearing your story. I'm genuinely curious person and want to know more about life and people and all that. And I'm not getting paid to do gear demos. I'm like, yeah, some people are sending me stuff and I'm doing demos, but like they're like, if you don't like it, don't do a video. Period. You know, like
yeah.
So there's no judgment. It's just like it is what it is. But it's fun, man. And I'm having a blast doing it. All right.
Good.
You ready to do this lightning round get down with me?
Yeah, I'm probably gonna stutter, but we'll give it a
go. All right, so I'm gonna put on a metronome. Okay, we have to have a little bit of suspense. We're at 110 BPM cruising altitude. Nice safe waters here. Nice safe sky. No turbulence. So I'm gonna start you off. First question is always the same: Lennon or McCartney?
McCartney.
Okay. Deadpool or Spider-Man?
Deadpool.
All right. Is this a true or false statement? Nothing good happens after midnight.
False.
Okay. My man. Mario or Zelda?
Zelda, because I spent so many hours playing it.
Me too. All right. What's more satisfying? Bubble wrap or packing peanuts?
I hate packing peanuts, bubble wrap.
Okay.
I hate packing peanuts.
I know, me too. Wayne or Garth?
Garth.
Flanger or phaser?
Oh, flanger.
Okay. Treehouse or pillow fort?
I'd like a proper treehouse. But I never had the chance as a kid. I'd love one.
Okay. Fuzzface or Tone Bender?
Tone Bender.
And then this is the last one. Okay, so sometimes this is really hard for people. Sometimes this is super easy. If you could take one album, it does not have to be your favorite album of all time or anything like that, but if you could take one album and erase it from your memory, so like you've never heard it before, so you could go back now and listen to it for the first time just to experience it again, what album would that be?
Oh, blimey. You have to forgive me. It's by Motley Crue, and I can't remember the name of the album. It's got girls on it. Yeah, that one.
Was that
I
album?
can't remember the name of.
Was it Dr. Feelgood? Was that the name of the record?
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm right. And so I'm a Motley Crue fan, but because of the way I digest music these days,
yeah,
it's greatest hits. Ding ding ding. Always greatest hits. So I don't know what album it is. I think it was Doctor.
Fair enough. Well, you made it through the lightning round, so thank you again for making that happen. So Adrian, dude, thank you so much for staying up late and hanging with me. It was so lovely to talk to you and meet you and hear a little bit about your story and everything. So I appreciate you.
Likewise, man. And sorry about the horrendous backdrop. However, that being said, this does look like rubbish, but it isn't. Because
what is it?
It is.
Is it like a NASA Lego set kind of thing?
Yeah. I built it.
Oh, that's dope.
Hang on.
Oh, that's dope.
There you go.
Whoa, dude.
It's the space shuttle.
How many pieces is that?
Oh, it is. I'm failing here. I'm going to put that back down there in front of me. It's thousands.
Yeah.
What the? Sorry, I've kind of sidelined. 2,350.
Holy crap, dude. That's a lot.
Yeah.
We just put, my kid and I last Christmas my wife got me the Millennium Falcon. So my kid and I put that together. Big one. Yeah.
Oh,
big old guy. Yeah,
that's 6,000 pieces.
It was a lot. We had that stuff spread over our kitchen table for like a month, and my wife was like, "Are you gonna finish this, or what's happening? Like, can we speed this process up a little bit, buddy?" I was like, "Yeah, we can speed it." But it got done. It's on a shelf out there, and I'm like on display, so it's nice to have it. But I mean, whatever, dude. It was fun. It was something for my kid and I to do together. So that was good.
It's good to be an adult because you can do kid stuff as well. You know.
Yeah.
Kind of cool,
dude. Amen. But anyway, buddy, so thank you. Tell everybody where they can find all your products and all your social stuff.
Yeah, go to thorpyfx.com. So www.thorpyfx.com. That's THORPYFX. Find us on Instagram. That's where we mostly put new photos, all the rest of it. I'm into photography, so I'm trying to give some interesting sort of viewpoints of what we do. And yeah, we're on Twitter, Facebook, blah, blah, blah. The whole lot. Not TikTok yet, though. I feel like I'm a little bit old.
I know I can't do it either, man. I'm scared. I'm already so busy with all these other platforms. I'm like, do I have to do that? I don't want to do that. It's too much.
I don't really want to dance. You know, maybe I set fire to myself with a soldering iron or something on TikTok for the low.
Nice. Well, dude, again, thank you very much, sir. Appreciate your time. Everybody, thank you so much for coming and hanging out. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. And we'll see you next time.